When we start to live outside the confines of our story, we're open to new information, and we can grow, and we can experience a deeper reality. Not just with ourselves, we can end up connecting. We can't really connect with others if we're living inside our story of what's wrong. Doesn't matter if we're not officially blaming them. If it's what's wrong with me, we're still afraid to be vulnerable and real, because somebody else will end up rejecting us. So my final story for you tonight is an illustration again of the possibility of and what happens when we're starting to step out of our stories. And this is, I found this in Krapaletio, which is by Scott McClanahan. He says, one time a man, I'm paraphrasing part of it, left home. He had argued with his mother and father the day before he left. They spoke horrible words to one another, and he left without saying goodbye. He had been gone many years, he even spent time in jail. Years later, when he finally got out of jail, he wondered if his mother and father were even alive, and how they were holding what had been said, and how they were relating to where he had wound up. Were they ashamed? Were they enraged? He wrote to them and told them he'd be coming home on a specific day the following week. He said if they wanted to see him and were not angry, not blaming him anymore, not ashamed, they should put a blanket on the clothesline and he would know to come inside. If the blanket was missing, he would know that he was not welcome. He would know to turn back. And he told them he hoped they were in good health. The man arrived by rail the next week. He was nervous when he stepped off the train. There was no one there to meet him. He walked up the worn path towards the home place and thought about the past. He thought about his time in jail. He thought about how angry or ashamed his parents must have been. He thought about the horrible words they spoke. He was just about to turn around and go back to where he came from when he saw a blanket in a tree. He kept walking. He saw another blanket. He kept walking. He saw another blanket. Then he turned towards home, and the house was covered with blankets. The yard was covered in blankets. The clothesline was covered in blankets. The path to the door was covered in blankets. His parents were standing there, and they were welcoming him inside. I think part of what touches me about that so much is we're so inclined to believe our stories of separation, when deep down we all want to connect. Deep down. We may be too afraid to make the gesture and put out the blanket, but that's what we long for. It takes a dedicated practice to challenge the stories. Mostly we're in such a trance we don't notice they're there, and then when we start to notice, it takes a real willingness to say, oh, look, this in some way is me making myself wrong or somebody else wrong. This is the shouldn't be happening story. It takes dedicated practice to get the knack of really being in our bodies and breathing with what's there till we start sensing the space of that witness, that larger presence. But it's possible, because that space does open up.